deck is stacked.
Hello and welcome to a Burger Motorsports BMS JB4 installation video for the BMW B58. This video is designed to supplement the instructions that come with the JB4. Obviously recommend reading those, and this video will really just give you a little bit more information about how to actually mount the main control unit for the JB4, and also how to run and connect the harness. There's not a lot of information about those components, but there's quite a bit of information out there about the general installation. So read the manual, but a couple of things we will touch on. If you have purchased the Bluetooth connector, then you do need to open up the unit. Simply four Allen's key screws, small Allen's keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, open those and very carefully separate the unit. There is a rubber washer in there that you want to retain in place to ensure that the unit remains waterproof. And then the plug for the Bluetooth just simply plugs into the end of the unit, and then go ahead and close it back up, and you're ready to go in terms of adding the Bluetooth unit. Same process also to add the USB tuning cable as well. If you're not going to use the Bluetooth adapter, I recommend getting the Bluetooth adapter. The other thing to note with the unit, you can optionally install the electronic wastegate as well. I do recommend installing the EWG, but technically there's actually only 2 plugs that are required for the installation, your MAF and your T-MAP sensor. So these are the 2 plugs that are required, but again, there is a 3rd plug, which is the electronic wastegate. I recommend installing that while you're at it. And there is also the OBD connector. Again, I recommend installing that. It's not required, but the OBD feeds more information to the unit for tuning purposes, and also allows you to log and data log the unit to just ensure that it's running in an optimal fashion. The way these units, or piggyback units, work is they basically intercept data. They intercept the values going in and out of some of the sensors, such as your map sensor and your electronic wastegate sensor. So the way the installation works, it's literally going to intercept a couple of sensors and around the engine. So what you're going to do is basically unplug a sensor, a harness from the sensor on the engine. You're then going to take that plug that you've removed, plug it into one of the connections on the JB4, and then you're going to plug the other component, the plug of the JB4, back into the factory sensor, so that your stock harness, instead of going directly into the sensor, it's now coming into the JB4. And then that gives the ability for the JB4 to actually control and measure the input. The JB4 then adjusts that and then gives another output back to the control units, such as the electronic wastegate. And that allows the JB4 to make adjustments to the electronic wastegate, and it's effectively tricking the ECU. For example, in terms of the wastegate, it tricks the ECU into thinking that it's actually outputting less boost than it actually is. And that allows, of course, the electronic wastegate to overboost the turbo, gives you a bit more PSI, and of course more power. That's the fundamental way that the JB4 works, and all of the piggybacks work. So again, 2 plugs at minimum required for the JB4, but I do recommend also installing the 3rd, which is the electronic wastegate, and also the OBD plug as well, just to give you complete control over all of the sensors, and also give you data logging control. That's it. With that, let's go ahead and get started with the installation. Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how I like to install the JB4 in a B58 installation for maximum sort of cleanliness and tidiness, I suppose, in the engine bay. I've done a number of these. I've installed JB4s in M2s, M3s, M240is, M235is, X6, X4s, a whole load of BMWs. This is a right-hand drive vehicle, worth noting, I should say. and I'm going to do the full install, including the electronic wastegate, the OBD, and of course the other two sensors. Step one when you install the JB4 is actually to shut the car off and lock the doors, walk away from it for at least 10 minutes and allow the car to go into sleep mode. Leave your key far away from the car when you return to the car. Of course, you want to unlock the bonnet before you lock the car and lock the doors, and that way if you've got comfort access or anything like that, it won't actually wake up the car. So open the bonnet, lock the doors, and leave the car for at least 10 minutes. It'll go into sleep mode, which basically just shuts off some of the electronics to the engine bay, and then you can come back. Next step is to remove the engine cover. I've already gone ahead and loosened that off. It's really just 3 plugs. And also remove the covers from either side. And that's as simple as just turning these little clips, and then they just really easily slide away. So we'll go ahead and remove those. And remove the beautiful M Performance engine cover, exposing the beast of the B58. The other thing for my installation, I've got a electronic wastegate controller I want to install, which means I need to remove my Denon carbon fiber cold air intake, which is the same process for removing the factory intake. First thing I like to do is mount the JB4 in this wheel well. This is the passenger side. The first thing I like to do with the JB4 as well is install a bunch of sort of these little pads on the back of it, and then I take a couple of zip ties and thread it into the chassis. I'm going to try and get a good view for you here. There's a little hole here in the top of this section, and apologies, it's a little bit dark, and similarly there's another hole down this side, and these holes are basically the perfect size to run a zip tie through either end of the JB4. And when I finally install this, I'll come back and I'll tighten these zip ties right up, and it'll pull the JB4 tight against the body here, and these little pads will ensure that there's no metal on metal, no chance of sort of vibration or any of the paint wearing away or anything. It keeps it all nice and firm, but for now I just leave it hanging loose. This unit also has the Bluetooth connector already installed, and also has the electronic wastegate already installed. Now in terms of running the cabling, I bring it up out of the back of the JB4 here, so the main wiring harness. I run it up under this little plastic piece here. This just simply lifts up and allows you to then bring the JB4 harness, the main harness, out through this side here. And then what I then do is like to tuck it back up along side these existing factory harness wires there. And I've obviously already removed the engine cover, I should note, and then I run the harness up into the V of the engine here. Excuse the dog barking in the background. And that sets you up with a nice clean install. I mean, virtually factory. And eventually I'll actually go back and I'll tuck these wires, this harness for the JB4, actually under the factory wiring like that. And it's barely noticeable. You can't even see the harness there. And then of course we run the main section of the harness through the center section of the B58. I've got the wiring roughly sitting in place. Actually, it's around the wrong way, sorry. Got the harness roughly sitting in place for the various connections now, and I'll come back and start to make those connections, including the electronic wastegate. In terms of running the OBD, the cleanest way to do that is by running it through the firewall, and for that purpose there's a grommet just there where I'm shining the torch. I'll move it away and I'll shine it again. There's a grommet right there, just behind the brake booster. It's a little bit tricky to reach by hand. I like to get a steel coat hanger. I straighten it out and push it through, and then that gives you the ability to really easily control and pull the OBD harness in from the other side. You want to pull it in through the interior side. Now, the way the plugs work for the various sensors in the JB4, it's really simple. Take a flathead screwdriver, put it down next to this little clear plastic or light plastic colored safety catch. Give the screwdriver a twist. It's going to pop this safety catch forwards. That then allows you to push the safety catch down with your fingers. So push some pressure down, and then just very carefully pull the plug towards you, and the plug's going to come free. Sometimes you might need to give it a little bit of a wiggle. It can be a little bit tight. Or the other thing you can do, of course, is take your flathead screwdriver and very carefully just add a little bit of leverage to the back of the plug to just allow it to come free. And you go ahead and you repeat that same process for each of the 3 various plugs, including the electronic wastegate. Simple as that in terms of removing these plugs and adding the intercepts. And then to reinstall, it's literally just the reverse, of course. So slide the new connector back into the location of the plug. Listen for the clip, which means it's seated home, and then push the safety pin back into the location. You shouldn't have to force it. These plugs are very easy to use, easy and user-friendly, so just take your time with them. In terms of routing the harness for the JB4, so as I mentioned, first and foremost, it starts here, and I've routed it down behind these factory harnesses. It's got the same sort of shielding wrap on the JB4 as the stock harness, so it just sort of blends in. I then have bought the JB4 harness in around behind this plug for the engine cover. I've then routed it down under this factory harness here, under the fuel rail, and then I started to split it off basically. So the map sensor first runs down, the FI sensor I should say, wire runs down. I run it under the front of the tubing here, and the first intercept and clip occurs here. The running back up to the main JB4 harness again, I then run the second map sensor into directly into its location here, and this is where the second intercepts happen here. And then finally the electronic wastegate harness, I continue, run under the MAF, and then under this wiring here, under the fuel rail section, in and around the front, again around the back of the plug here, and then down into the electronic wastegate section, and I'll show you how that all hooks up. For the JB4 to operate, technically you only need to plug in here at the front of the engine and here at the top. They're the only 2 sensors that are technically needed for maps 1, 2, and I believe map 3. If you want to run anything higher than map 3, usually map 4, 5, 6, etc., then they basically recommend, or it's a requirement, to plug into the electronic wastegate. So you do need to run that third harness if you're intending to run those higher maps. And also recommended to plug into the OBD as well, wherever you're running map 2, 3, 5, etc. Although technically that's not an absolute requirement as well. So that is the way that I like to route the JB4 up through the back, down through the central sort of almost this sort of V of the engine. Obviously it's not a V, but that's the sort of there's a nice area and space there to run it, and it just ensures that the wires aren't getting pinched. There's not a lot of movement. They're not pinching or any of the other factory harnesses, and it's a tidy installation. When the cover goes on, it's completely stealth. The only place that you can really even see the harness, if you look really closely, it's up around these other two harnesses, but again, it blends in. So this is a pretty stealth, clean install, and most importantly, it's an installation that is going to be future-proof, because again, you're not pinching your wiring is not rubbing, it's not hanging all over the engine bay, loose, etc. It's all tied to the way. Okay, so now I've removed the airbox, and I'm just going to point out the location of the electronic wastegate clip. It's under this little heat shield here, so you just need to go ahead and unclip and remove this heat shield to run the electronic wastegate control. Be careful not to drop anything into your intake as well, of course. It's generally best to stick a rag or something down there, just to doubly ensure that nothing's going to fall into your intake. Okay, so quick review of the various ways that the plugs are now tucked away. So we're all connected, and if we start with the top of the map sensor, so this is the new JB4 connected into place. This is where the intercept connection is now sort of tucked away and hidden, and it's got no real wiggle worm. I've then have run the next T-map sensor down, and it's plugged into here, and here is where the intercept is now sitting. So again, just sort of tied it away, and everything is, you can see I've run under this component, this little section here. For the electronic wastegate, that's also, the harness starts here, runs under this section of the piping, harness runs down here, again just tucking it under a couple of these elements so that it's not pushing on anything. I've run it down behind the plug for the engine cover, down and around the sort of the piping here, and down next to the airbox. You want to make sure you run this wire on this side of the engine, away from the hot side. Remember, this is your turbo. There's a reason all this is heat shielded. You don't want this wire anywhere near the heat coming from that turbo. So and then just getting ready to reinstall the heat shield, but you can see there again, that's where the intercept is, and this is where we're plugged into the electronic wastegate. Just going to go back and double check all of the plugs are all of the clips are nice and tight on the JB4, and get ready to reassemble the intake. Okay, now that the harness is all tidy and installed, and it's in a manner where it's not going to interfere with anything, it's not going to come loose, it's not going to rattle, it's secure, and it's tidy. It's virtually a stealth install. Final step is to come back. I tightened off the cable ties that are holding the JB4, and you can see it is rock solid. It's basically not moving, it's not going anywhere, it's not going to rattle around. And then my Bluetooth module, you put a bit of double-sided 3M high quality tape on the back of this, and you really don't want to install this on a metal surface. It can interrupt with the Bluetooth reception. You'll get better reception if you install it on something like this little yellow plastic cover that BMW have nicely provided for JB4 installation. And the other thing you want to do is point the front of the JB4 Bluetooth receiver towards the driver's side. And again, just a reminder, this is a right-hand drive G series vehicle. Only other things to note is that this is a G series, so the electronic wastegate location that I showed before is a bit different to the F series. Otherwise, everything in terms of the installation is pretty much same. Now's the time to fire up the car, let it idle, ensure that your check engine light comes off and turns off as it would normally. It's normally on for about 3 seconds and that turns off. That should do the exact same behavior with the JB4. If your check engine light stays on, kill the engine, turn the car off, come back, triple check all of your installation, ensure that you've connected the harnesses to the right place. It is possible to, for example, accidentally connect the electronic wastegate up here. I think it's to that harness. That's a wrong location. Triple check everything. If you've got a fault in your installation, obviously correct it. you can try again. Otherwise, if your check engine lights or any other weird behaviors are going on, I would suggest you just remove a JB4 immediately and get in contact with their support. The next step, once the check engine light comes off, let the engine just warm for a few seconds, 30 seconds, give it a minute, and then give it a little bit of a rev. And just see that it's revving normally, that the revs are coming back, it's idling normally. Just triple check everything, and then you are ready to get out on the road and give it a road test. And again, don't go crazy off the bat, just ensure that it's running relatively normal. The JB4 will be on map 1 by default, which will give you a 3 PSI increase in performance. So it is really tempting to just boot it and feel that new 3 PSI, but just give it a little sense check first before you go using the right foot, and straight off the bat you can then start to explore the additional power that the JB4 is putting out. Of course, you'll have Bluetooth connectivity via the Bluetooth, so you can switch maps. But what I haven't done yet is installed the OBD port. That's sort of the final step, and at this stage I'd just like to give the car a really quick run to ensure that it is the harness and everything is running correctly on map 1. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, I've given the car a good shakedown drive now. It drove really well, as always with the JB4. Next step is to pop this grommet out of the firewall. The way I do it, I'd stick a long screwdriver in from this side, and that generally allows me to pop it and pull it out, or a really nice pair of long nose pliers. I then go and insert my old trusty straightened wire coat hanger down through the firewall, which allows me to very easily locate the other end. To remove this kick panel, it's really simple. It is 2 clips, turn, it'll drop down. It's literally got these two little clips here, either side on the panel, 1, 2, that allows you to drop. And then I take the end of my OBD cable, a little bit of electrical tape tied onto the end of your wire coat hanger, and then from this side I push it up as far as I can with my hand, which helps just to make sure that I'm not going to get snagged on anything. You can basically push it all the way up to the firewall and make it nice and easy to retrieve from the other side. So that's basically at the firewall side now. I'm going to run around. See how easy this is to do with one hand. Probably not too easy. Probably going to need to put the video down to actually get it. Sometimes you've got to give it a little twist and pull, and that'll come through for you nice and easily. Okay, now that we've got the OBD port harness fed up through the firewall, you want to run it down under this plastic shroud over to the other side of the engine bay, and then of course you can plug it directly into the JB4 harness, cable tied it away of course, and come back and plug in the other end to the JB4. The final trick here that I like to do with this plug is, you'll notice I've put a tiny little snip just in the very side of the clip here. If you don't do that, once you install this JB4 on your OBD port, it's quite tricky to get it out. It has this little clip, and it really is quite firm, and you haven't got much purchase in terms of pulling it down, and you can't get anything in there to actually pull this prong away to disconnect it. So there's a lot of reports online of people breaking their OBD port trying to get these things back out. Put a little snip in this clip here, and it will come out much easier, and it's firm. It's not going to drop out while you're driving or anything. It's in there, so this clip is almost superfluous regardless. Of course, you want to reconnect your dash and go for a drive. Install the Bluetooth application on your phone, and you can do some data logging and just check your codes and everything, of course. The best way to data log with a JB4 is going to sports mode, shift into manual mode, do some hard RPM pulls in third gear, and hit the red line. And of course, once you've done a shakedown drive, and make sure everything's running as per normal, and you're good to go. Just check those logs, or send those logs off to support at Burger Motorsport, and Terry and the guys at BMS will check the logs for you, and you're off to the races. Enjoy. An extra little step is to take the grommet out of the firewall, put a little nick in the grommet, one side of the grommet, like so. Just open it up in the middle a little bit, and then you can go and place this over the wire and slide it back down into place. Okay, so now we've made a little nick in a grommet and punched a little hole in the middle. We can go ahead and slide that over the JB4 wire and back down into position in the firewall. Make sure that the wire's got no chance of rubbing on the firewall, and just tidies everything back up. So final step, slide that over the wire, slide it into position. Go ahead, make sure you catch those two tabs at the back, pull the stripping forward at the front here, make sure that you find the latch, close that off, and then very simply tidy the washer jet lines back down into the cowling. That completes Stealth JB4 installation. So that's it as far as installation goes of the JB4. Once installed, I do recommend starting with map 1. Download and install the JB4 application on your mobile phone. Follow the instructions in the app to connect to the JB4 Bluetooth unit, and go and create a log of your JB4 performance parameters. You do this by finding a nice quiet stretch of road with a high speed limit or private road. Open the app, press the create log button, shift the car over into manual mode, run the car to about 1000 RPM in third gear, then immediately do a full throttle pull and accelerate under full throttle all the way to redline. From the app, you can then email the log to support@burgertuning.com. The BMS guys offer exceptional support. They will review your logs and ensure everything is running normally, and then you can start to push the maps up to map 2, 3, or whatever your car is ready for in terms of modifications. In terms of my impressions of the JB4, it's impressive. For the price to the power increase ratio, you expect increases of up to 60 or 70 wheel horsepower with stock internals, and also stock drivability. And particularly once you start to push into map 2 or 3, you'll really start to unlock that 60 to 70 wheel horsepower. But even just running map 1, you will find noticeable performance increases with the JB4. And of course, the unit can be easily removed or uninstalled, especially by reversing the installation procedure in this video. Unit's only zip tied to the car, etc., so you can return it to stock quickly and easily if you were to sell the car or whatever other reasons. So overall, the JB4 is an excellent piggyback tuner for BMW. In my opinion, it's the most tunable, flexible, it has the most experience and proven capability on the market. You can't really go wrong with a BMS product. I'm not sponsored or paid or anything for this review. This is purely my opinion and experience with these products in a range of BMWs over the past 5 years or so. So yeah, great product, great bang for buck performance increases, and hopefully this video helps you perform a safe, future-proofed and clean installation. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will respond to you. If there's enough interest, I may do a couple of other deep dive videos into the inner workings of piggybacks like the JB4, or do a follow-up video and show a few more of the features, like how to update the software and tuning on the JB4, how to use the Bluetooth app, how to use the desktop, laptop app, and keep you up to date with new features as they roll out into the JB4 and the likes. So please do like the video and subscribe, hit the bell icon, etc. to keep up to date. And please be safe on the roads and enjoy the performance increases of the JB4 unit. And thank you for watching.